All right, everyone, let's do this. It's great to have everyone here. Um, love love getting together on Tuesday nights, and we're coming up on the year. And so a couple great things coming up next week just for people that are here and also for people that are listening afterwards. And so on Tuesday, March 30th, which is a week from today, we are having the 1 year anniversary of Demand Gen Live, if you can believe it or not. And so Gaetano Donardi is going to join us. Yes, we made it through the entire year, if you can think about how much different things are. And so Gaetano Donardi will be joining us. Always excited to have him back. We'll probably lean a lot harder into the AMA straight thing just because him and I have so much to jam on. So it'll be fun. So anyone that wants to come and get a specific question answered, especially with Gaetano's skills, which are a little bit different than mine. And so feel free for anyone to show up for that. Again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Tuesday, March 30th. And then a couple days later, Dave and I sort of kind of planned it on April Fool's Day, but we didn't really do it like that way. But it is on April 1st, on Thursday, April 1st at 12 p.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. There's a live event that Dave and I are doing. It's the second one that we've done. The previous one had 800 registrants. We only have 1,000 cap max. And so anyone listening afterwards, we're going to start the promotion with the email and then on LinkedIn tomorrow. And so if you'd like to attend, would highly recommend that you sign up quickly because I do believe this one will fill up. And let's get into the agenda.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to start with the detailed live event strategy, mainly because like it's interesting sometimes when you get ready to post something on LinkedIn and like I'm like, I don't know if this thing's going to do very good. And then it becomes one of like the best performing posts that I've had in a really long time for a video that's going to carry for potentially like 1,000 likes and up to 50,000 views or something like that. And so that doesn't happen a lot. I post a lot of video content that doesn't happen a lot. So I know that I know the headline was catchy, what to do when trade shows are back. I know that the thought process is smart. I know that because I've actually done some of those events and I understand what the impact is and I know how to do them. I'm not talking in theory here. We've done those before. And I know because I've sat in trade show booths for 10 years almost as a marketer and saw what the impact of was those and measured them. And then I did a couple of these events on my own and I felt what the impact was. And I know these work better. So I want to get into the detailed live event strategy. Mainly, I was just talking at a high level about like what it was more like why you should do it in the post. And now I want to talk about the mechanics of, okay, if you were actually going to do this, what would you do for one event? How would you plan it? How would you promote it? What would you do afterwards? How would you measure it? Let's riff on that for a little while. And so the reason to do this, there are so many different reasons. So you have an event strategy. If you do it well, you have an influencer strategy, 1, to get attendees there, 2, to create content with, 3, as a method of distribution to their audience. So massive influencer play there. I know people don't like the word influencer. We can call it KOL or whatever you want, but it works. You have a content creation strategy in multiple formats. You could do market research by allowing Q&A at your event and then having the people that you wanted to do that were there to ask questions that you could learn from, which ironically, a lot of your other buyers also have. And so those are a couple of the reasons why to do it. You accomplish so much in one singular event. And if you have a strong subject matter expert, or if you have a strong CEO or executive or whoever you want to take part in that fireside chat with somebody that understands how to communicate your strategic narrative, it can be incredibly impactful. And so those are the reasons why. So if you were going to do it, let's just start with one event. Like my thing put out, like take your $2 million trade show booth and just like forget that and do 100 of them. But let's just start with one. And so let's say we were going to do one and we wanted to do it. And again, when like events are safe and you can get people together and this is not going to be 1 million people, like I think that the best performing ones are somewhere between 25 and 100, depending on who you're going after. Some people would argue that even smaller is better. And so we want to do one in Boston. Let's just I'll make this one up for Refine Labs, right? So I want to do one in Boston with Dave. It would probably be pretty good. And I can see David over there raising his hands like he would really enjoy that, right? like we would have a good audience for that. So let's say that we want to do that together. First, I got to identify the person. So I identified Dave. Actually, I'm going to back up and do one for a SaaS company so it's more realistic. So I am the CMO of a company that sells to CTOs. And I want to do an event. And so I'm going to choose the event to do it in Boston because I know that there's a emerging tech scene and blah, 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 blah. And who I'm going to invite to the event is Dharmesh Shah, the CTO of HubSpot. And I'm going to have him be the speaker. The speaker that would speak with our CTO about things that are changing in, technology for whatever industry. You can make up a topic that is narrow enough, but also broad enough that it's going to attract people. And then we need to find the space. We need to find the space. You do not need to have the Boston Convention Center booked for this thing. I also, some people want to do it at like a nice restaurant, steakhouse, like a lunch and learn. I'm not really a big fan of that either. I think something in the middle. I think something that where you have a space and it can feel casual and people can sit down and have some stuff and hang out afterwards, and ideally in a city where there's other things to do. So you all decide what your environment is based on your budget, but the environment doesn't matter that much as long as it accomplishes the goal. Next, if you want to do this properly, because a lot of the goal of this is to create content with Dharmesh, with the audience, then you need to have, I recommend high production film and audio. Getting a crew to do that is somewhere between, I would say, $5,000 and $10,000 total after all of the editing and everything like that. So put that together. If you wanted to go to a 2.0, you could think about live streaming it. A sophisticated company should do that for sure. And then we need to think about what is the topic. And then we need to figure out who do we want to go, who do we want to be there? And then we need to figure out how to get them there. And so if I was that SaaS company that was $5 million ARR and Dharmesh Shah was talking to about this thing in Boston, then I'm guessing that it wouldn't be very hard to get 50 people there that were my target buyer that are CTOs. And so you could use SDR outreach, you could use LinkedIn ads, you could make it feel more exclusive where it's invite only. You could, to your target accounts, you could just put organic LinkedIn. You could ask Dharmesh to post about it and people would show up. And so any of those different ways, when you have the right content, the promotion is easy. The content sells itself. And then you need to actually have the event, right? So you have the event, you decide what format. It can be back and forth. It could be fireside chat. It could be keynote by Dharmesh. It could be debating a topic. It could be all Q&A. Any of those things are fair game. Like ultimately what you're doing this for is the 90 minutes or however long you decide to do it of the content. Because then when you have the content, you post produce it and you put it on the internet. And that is where you get all of the impact because you have way more scale, right? So everyone's so busy trying to sell to the 25 people at the event rather than creating good information where they can put it out and create way more brand awareness and way more inbound opportunity that way without needing to invite people to your event to try and sell to them stuff. It just feels better. And so let's say you do the event. It was great. People were engaged, great feedback. We usually do a little survey afterwards, just see how people thought about what we could do better and different stuff like that. I usually get some good comments to learn because we will continue to do these things when we can. And then you have all of the content. Now, what are you going to do? So that could be episode 1 of your podcast if you've never done one. Be a pretty good episode 1, I would think. You could take the 90 minutes and chop it up, and you would probably have 10 posts for LinkedIn for your company page, a couple for Dharmesh that you could share, and then he might share on LinkedIn. He's been sharing a little bit more video lately, although it's always links to YouTube. So maybe you could get him a native video to post. If your CEO or subject matter expert CTO was talking, you could get video that's post-produced specifically for their LinkedIn. You'd have the entire long form video that you could put on your website and on YouTube and not behind some like gate. Just put it on your website so people can see it. I would actually take a banner at the top of my homepage and I would link to it. So you can use the banner on the top of the homepage to direct someone to a specific piece of content. We've been using that for the podcast. It's been working pretty well. And then there's like so you have all that stuff. You know who attended the event. Difficult to measure who's listening to your podcast unless they tell you. Difficult to see who saw, the content from Dharmesh's LinkedIn post organic. A lot of the stuff that you're doing becomes difficult to quantify, which is why people don't do this stuff. And then you have the idea of all of the people that Dharmesh knows, and Dharmesh knows you much better, knows about your company a lot more, thinks you're more credible than he did before the event. And I imagine that there's plenty of CTOs that ask Dharmesh for their opinion about what tool to use. And if you're the only tool that he knows in that category, or you become the top of mind tool, you get recommended to a lot of people for no reason. I know for sure that I do that for companies that have me on their podcast, where it's in a category where I don't care that much. And so that's another component of it, where just having the awareness from people that influence buying decisions, again, not transactional, no attribution, drives a lot of buying decisions in B2B. And I don't know how people don't recognize some of these things. It's just so obvious. So that's sort of like the event strategy. That's what I would do. And then if you wanted to scale it up, which you definitely could, you could definitely do this one to two times a month, more if you wanted to. If you had different people that were doing them in different regions, if you had 6 field marketers that were good across the country, you could do them in sub regions, and you could create a lot of them. And so field marketers spend a lot of time hosting like dinners with 2 accounts that are sales dinners, but nothing like this, because it's not orchestrated. It's difficult to measure for a lot of the more obvious reasons, and field marketers just tend to get pushed more towards sales, is what I find, than marketing. So those are some options. Would love to pause and answer questions if anyone's ready to take a live event for their company when you can.
Drop some questions if you have. I have a question for you, Chris. How would you advise people to think about promoting the event to drive the like smaller group in-person attendance? Like, given the distribution strategy, like you really get the max benefit, I think, post-event through all of the distribution that you have. So like, obviously you can invite like prospects and customers, but when you think about like identifying the right influencer, you didn't touch on that too much. I think that's an area where I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Who to choose in a city? Like, so who is your target persona? You should know that, right? Like I've made CTO, CFO, marketing director, finance manager, procurement, cloud security architect, whatever. It doesn't really matter. If you do not know the 10 to 50 people that those people listen to online, then you're really missing something. You need to know those people. They drive the buying decisions, right? And so in a past world, in 2014, we called them key opinion leaders in medical device. They were the people that were speaking at conferences. They were the people that were doing the clinical trials. They were the people that were publishing the articles that drove the way that medicine was practiced. And the exact same thing happens in every discipline. There are people that are ahead of the curve, that people trust, that have credibility, that are forward thinking, that other people listen to because they trust that they have the correct information about what to do next. And so you need to know who those people are. You need to have that locked in. I knew that stuff when I was starting my company. My target, to be 100% direct, was actually B2B sales leaders in SaaS, not marketers. And it worked really well. So mine were Josh Braun, Justin Welch, Colin Cadmus. Like, I did have Dave Gerhardt on that list, who doesn't fall into that category exactly, but I knew who those people were. And then I was able to, by engaging with them, building relationships, do those things, move into a place where they trusted me as just as much as I trusted them. And so, that's what the first step is. You got to identify people. And that is it's very simple. Look online, or just go and ask people. They'll tell you. Who are the people that you follow on LinkedIn for your, advice on finance? Who are the people what podcasts do you listen to? You don't need a social listening tool. You don't need a bunch of different tech. You can just go ask people. They'll tell you, right? And so I find people like overcomplicating this stuff, especially with social listening tools. It's like, You don't need that stuff, especially when you sell like a niche B2B. It makes sense in like B2C where there's sentiments and different things like that across a lot of channels. Like I get it, but if you're selling to a narrow ICP B2B audience, like you don't need that stuff.
Charlie had a good question. Is the value add of a live event podcast over a virtual one worth the significantly higher expense?
It's up to you. It really is. I believe that a mix is the right approach. I've done both of them. I currently am doing one part of that. They both work. They definitely both work. I think for companies, when I made this initially, it was for companies that are literally just wasting millions of dollars on trade show booths, right? And so when you have those millions of dollars, it can be much better spent. Like I know that you can put on these events for somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 total. I know that companies put on field marketing events for, at least 10. I know that they sponsor like a little mini trade show booth at some stupid conference for $15,000. It's like a regional trade show thing. Like, so I know that there's money being wasted everywhere that would be way better spent putting together a high production video, having 15, 20, 30, 50 people there, putting out good information, creating brand affinity, becoming a leader in the industry, delivering on a great event. You can do a lot of other experiential things along the way. I love the idea of having like some type of thing where people can take photos and post them, especially so you can figure out other ways to amplify the event. Like we've done that on Demand Gen Live a couple of times where people have certain things, they take pictures, they shout it out. You get more awareness through other people, through word of mouth. And so I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But when I'm speaking typically to companies that are relatively mature, that are spending a lot of money in other places. And so my recommendation would be, yes, you should do it, because some companies wouldn't allow what we're doing right now to go out on their company page. It's not high quality enough. Blah, 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 blah. You say too many times, whatever. Like, so I recommend it.
Awesome. David had a good comment to kind of close this out. If customers come to the event, you can even get like a quick testimonial video. I think
we've had that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We literally have had that happen. We've had an event with 20 people. One or two of our customers were there. Somebody that was a customer asked a question, and they started with, "We've been working with you for 4 months and we are so happy with our inbound pipeline. Things are great, blah, 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 blah." And we have all of that captured. And all the people at the event that had all of our target buyer at all of our target companies heard it. And so you create environments where some of that stuff can happen authentically. Great comment, David. Cool.
That was a great segment for that. How you feeling? You want to roll into one of the next agenda topics?
That's what we're going to do. I'm going to try and deliver on what people have asked for, which is to try and just get through the whole thing. So let's see what happens here. I had an interesting back and forth with someone, a MarTech consultant over LinkedIn, and I thought the comment was interesting. And so the point here is to just clarify my thoughts on marketing attribution, because what he said was like, I hear people in Clubhouse talking about how they don't use any attribution because you tell them to. And that is not what I'm saying. Like, I am not saying do not use attribution software. We use it for every opportunity. What I'm saying is that the way that it's actually used in companies is not smart, because they think that it's 100% accurate and they don't apply common sense on top of it. And then they make strategic decisions on where to invest money and what tactics to use and all those things with a tool that can't measure most of the things. And so the first step is to acknowledge all the holes that an attribution software has, which are abundant. There are many things that it misses. All of the most important things, I continue to argue, get missed by attribution software, and then give credit last touch organic search, because everything else can't be tracked. And then I tell David to go buy that tool. And then David goes into Google and searches the brand, and they have SSL lock on organic search because Google took that away. And then it's just going to show up in marketing automation. Oh, just Google straight to a demo. That must have been organic search that drove that. And so those are the easiest examples about all these things that get missed. Word of mouth, social with no click, which is happening a ton in our data. Organic social, a comment in a Revenue Collective Slack, a comment that I have in a LinkedIn post, a like that I give to somebody's comment of someone that I follow, and then they see the like, and then they click my profile, and then they see what we do, and then they share it with somebody, and then that person comes inbound. There's so many things that are just impossible to track, and companies use this like it's the truth. Like, we won't do a podcast because we can't measure it, because there's no attribution to revenue is one that I use a lot, but there's everything. And then because of the lower funnel things, mainly Google, mainly intent channels with referral, like Capterra or G2 or all those different things, where there's intent to buy, get all of the credit. And what do you end up there when you're not focusing on top of the funnel, winning on brand, creating demand? You become a commodity vendor inside of a category where someone doesn't know exactly why you're better. You need to win way before somebody gets there, but the attribution tools tell you not to do that. They tell you to spend all of your time and all your money lower funnel. And so that is, maybe there's some questions that can get more out of me on this one, but literally it's basically that simple. It cannot be something that you look at as if it's 100% true. And that's how I see it being used. And yeah, that's not it.
No, I think that was great. No questions.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you made your point. It was.
Yeah. But I don't want people to go out there and be like, don't use attribution software, use the tools that help you get insights. But what I'm looking at is basically to just look at what is the split on paid search versus organic, because I know that buyers, when they're ready to buy, funnel directly through search. And yes, you're going to have something on the fringe. You're going to have a couple direct response on paid social. You're going to have a couple that click on your LinkedIn page. You're going to have a couple that's, tell the sales rep that they heard about you through a friend, so the sales rep changes the lead source manually, or whatever happens. Like, those things are going to happen. But whenever I look and I go and analyze the revenue that's actually becoming revenue, not leads, that fills through a demo form, 80% or more funnels through a search engine. So we got a good one here. This is one I've never talked about. I actually kind of just had there's a lot of thoughts going around in my head right now about a lot of different things. And so it was interesting. I want to think about how I got to this point. I talk a lot about how, like, companies struggle to innovate because of all of the constraints that happen inside of a company. How are we going to measure it? We need budget. We need to get approval. No, you can't do that. Whatever those, we need to hit our MQL targets. You can't spend any of your time doing this, and you can't invest enough time to actually make that stuff work. And we're not going to give it enough time because after 2 weeks, we're not seeing the results that we want. So we're going to tell you to stop doing it. For all of those different reasons, companies restrict innovation. That I believe long-term that companies will find a way to outsource innovation, to maybe not outsource, to crowdsource innovation potentially. Because what we have right now, and I'm going to be really direct about how I see this, is that we have analyst firms like Serious Decisions or Gartner that create a top of, like, a very high level model about what your marketing strategy should be or what your demand waterfall should look like. And then they leave it up to all the MarTech vendors that pay them to tell them what the tactics should be. And then you end up of just running whatever the playbook the MarTech vendor gives you, which is just creating the metrics that platform can measure, not necessarily the ones that work. So it's MarTech and it's ad tech. And so at some point, people are going to realize that there must be a better way to figure out things to do. And we maybe shouldn't listen to all the things that these people are telling us, because my belief is that it's incredibly biased. And we're not prepared to be able to get this done in-house because we put up so many constraints. The only way that we could do it in-house is to literally hire a separate team that doesn't have to answer to all of the stuff that our company puts forward that gets in the way. And we're not prepared to do that. So maybe there's a different way where there's some type of crowdsourcing. People I don't know, like I'm thinking out loud here. What we're doing which I think is sort of like an interesting sort of like 1.0 of this, is now we have 8 directors of demand gen that are working on 24 different SaaS companies that all are in a pretty similar ACV, that are all top caliber people, that are all running different experiments on different channels with different things, with different data, learning different things, finding trends. And then once we find something that works, we did this on Monday, I found something that was working really well on LinkedIn, and then we can roll that out to all 23 and validate whether or not it's going to work across the board. And so, and then is there a way to get that innovation into other companies? Like that's the piece that I haven't figured out yet. But if you had that, basically the company can be focused on their customer. They can be focused on running their machine. They can be doing all those things. And then they can get validated insights that have worked on a lot of different companies in a way that would never happen in-house, that then can just be purchased or transferred or something to a company. So we'll see. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. I do know how I got here, so I'm going to go back and tell it. I started this company because I couldn't find a company that would let me do marketing the way that I wanted, because I like to innovate and companies always get in the way. And so I'm in the position that I am in right now. A lot of people give me flexibility to do the things that I want to do because I'm free from a lot of the constraints. And so that's sort of how I got onto the innovation point, because I went and interviewed with a bunch of companies. I worked at several of them. I tried to start a podcast. I tried to start a LinkedIn channel. Can you believe that? Can you believe there were several companies that had me inside of their company and I could have done the stuff that I'm doing right now and they wouldn't let me? It's unbelievable. So
this topic, I think, makes me think of, it might actually be in the company's best interests to just focus on cultivating great subject matter expertise, content production, content creation, because to your point, I think the point of not being able to replicate it in-house and having the vantage point of seeing the same thing across multiple types of companies, multiple industries. So like, if you think about a CMO at a new company and what they should be prioritizing internally, I think it's actually a really interesting angle to like, that's maybe how it should be done, because you're bringing a vantage point that they'll never be able to get in-house, and they should only focus on the things that they're going to be the best at in-house, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's just like, those insights are coming from somewhere right now. But I just find that they mostly come from MarTech vendors or people that are paid by MarTech vendors. And so perhaps there's a way to deliver information that's more objective.
I think we have a question from Karina. I want to bring you on to ask your question live related to this topic. It's a great follow-up.
Okay. So I work for one of those companies that's very big, been around for almost 50 years, lots of marketers, lots of people doing all their different things. Recently about a year ago, we got a new CMO, and thank goodness he said, why don't we stop doing MQLs and look at SQLs and opportunities and wins? And I went, thank God. Mm-hmm. Because I was measured on both, and it was like, well, wait a minute, I can't do this and this. And so I'm just starting this process, looking at, what's the high intent things that are happening, mm-hmm. Ask for a demo, those types of, chat, yep. Those form fills. Next thing I'm looking at is our digital, LinkedIn, pay-per-click, those kind of things. So I'm just trying to figure out what other things could I be doing? Because like I said, I'm just starting out, just trying to get the ball rolling with revenue going here.
Mm-hmm. As a marketer, I'm looking to be scored as late in the funnel as possible. So therefore they can't put ridiculous top of funnel metrics that don't matter at the beginning, yep. Right? Like give me SQOs, give me, and in a long enough time, give me close one, because I can I can win 10 deals a month and I don't need to get 10,000 MQLs in order to do it. Right. And so that was just a point for everybody. On the high intent thing, it's not necessarily about looking at like different channels. What you want is you want people to come through and say, hey, I want to talk to your sales rep about buying this stuff. And then you need to think about what are the places where people look for something like you, and how are you there? Google, Capterra, conversion rate optimization. There's like some very simple things that you can get done for people that are already looking. You could do retargeting across several different channels, that type of stuff. And then the rest of the engine is focused on how do I use other channels to influence more people to do that, because they have more of a desire to buy after I did something with them. Right. And so I don't think about LinkedIn as its own channel about delivering a certain type of leads. I think about LinkedIn as a way to influence someone with information that later will come back and do the demo request. I think about a podcast as some way where it's a touch point. They listen to the podcast 4 times, and then I just have that one LinkedIn post that goes out and they're like, I'm struggling with that stuff about how he talked about ABM not doing blah, 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 blah. And then they convert that way. And so it's just thinking about a lot of different touch points that eventually lead to the same outcome. And then all you do is you just have one singular funnel that you need to focus on, and then just figure out which channels are the ones that are driving the impact. People struggle with this because it's more like an art than a science. It's both, but there's a lot of art to it. And people think about it all like it's just science and math. It's not. And so there's an art to figuring out which are the ones that are actually working. I know that they're working because people tell me, because I'm looking at comments, because I know who was in there, right? So when you're at a channel level, especially on social, you need to be in there in order to understand what's actually happening. You can feel it when you're in there. You can see what people are saying. You can see whether someone responds. When you post, you can see how many people like it and who they are and whether or not that's growing. And so there's some things where because people are so high level looking at Salesforce dashboards, they never feel those details, which is why they need the science so much, because they won't spend the time to go and look at those places. And so, but like some companies have hundreds of SDRs that are out there cold calling people, and they're pumped to have 3 connections in a day. And I have 50 conversations a day with CMOs in the comments of LinkedIn. It just makes no sense. It's literally the exact same thing, having a conversation. I'm just not asking someone to just have a meeting with me that's not going to close, right? And so it's literally just a different way to have a conversation, but for some reason, cold calling is better, or for some reason, that's just the way that I see it.
Okay.
Any follow up?
No, I think that's really helpful. We're trying a different thing because there is no events right now. So we talked to our sales team about let's just talk about the common problems that people are having with, with visibility into their data, let's come up with some ideas of things that you guys have encountered in the past, of questions that you've had, and just have virtual team, or go to webinar, where you just bring people together and just have a conversation. So that's actually worked out really well. We get about 20 or 30 prospects that are just interested in learning more. So we're starting with that. So it's not the event, we're bringing people together in person, but it's happening just because nobody wants to travel yet.
It's a great strategy.
We're starting somewhere.
Yeah, right. And so I think some people get caught up on the idea of oh, we only had 20 people on our Zoom, it wasn't successful. It's really, the fact that 20 people showed up, you should be grateful for, right? I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying it to the people that are listening afterwards, because I hear that excuse a lot. Oh, our event was a failure because we didn't have 500 people there. And I just don't see it that way.
No, we've tried it before where we've had in-person events, and back in 5 years ago, we've tried it, and then we got 5 people to show up for these, and they're like, those don't work. And I said, let's try it again, because maybe it's going to work now. So we're pretty happy that we're getting 20 at a time.
Yeah. This is for anyone listening. They work. It's up to the execution. It's up to the offer. It's up to the content. It's up to the presenters. It's up to the promotion. It's up to the post-production. The stuff works. It comes down to execution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karina. Good to have you on tonight. All right. We have a couple more questions coming in and a few that were submitted in advance. Should I roll into those next?
If we got some live ones, let's do it. The agenda's done. So however you want to go from here.
Natalie, I'm going to bring you on. You had a question about reporting software?
Pleasure. Yeah, I'm really excited. Chris, I've been listening the past few weeks and it's been great. Matthew recommended you guys and I've been super excited to just kind of be a sponge and learning as much as I can here. So just first of all, wanted to say that.
Nice.
And then right now we're having like a little bit of a thing that we're dealing with where we're trying to figure out how to best give reporting to all the different clients that we work with. I work with an agency and everybody has different CRMs and, we're doing LinkedIn ads, we're doing Google ads, we're doing Facebook, and we're just trying to figure out a way to best give that information to our customers as well as being able to monitor it ourselves in-house. I don't know if you have any software you recommend or if anyone else on this call has something they recommend.
The reason that we are going to beat other agencies is because we're in the CRM. Like that's really the answer. But for most agencies, they don't want to see what's in there because the stuff they're doing is not working, right? And so performance marketing agencies that run direct response to ebooks on Google and LinkedIn and have the lowest CPA don't want to see what's in Salesforce because I see it and it's not good. And so when you put those two things together, the real answer is get in there and be invested in the customer's results that you see in Salesforce. That's the answer. But in order to do that, you need to actually change the way that you do marketing too. There's two components of it, right? So that's, I don't know anything about your agency. I'm talking in generalities right now. So please don't take this the wrong way.
No worries.
But that's sort of like the two components, right? Because I go in and I clean up messes from other agencies that do stuff like that run those types of ads and have 1.1% win rates that have direct attribution with UTM tags. So I can be very clear with how much was spent and how much was generated and how bad it was. And so, but most agencies will just say, build a report in Data Studio and say, hey, here's 1,000 leads. They were $43 each on LinkedIn. They were $32 each on LinkedIn or on Google. It was great. And we don't care. We don't see the conversion rates. We don't see the opportunities. We don't see the CAC. We don't see the cost per SQO. That's just the way that agency models have been built. And to be honest, that comes down to the customer's fault because they tell the agency to do that way. And they don't even scrutinize what's happening afterwards. They just look at leads too. And so I just find the whole relationship to need a reconstruction, for lack of a better way to say it. But I would recommend like you can use a different tool, but the best way to get aligned with your customer is to look at the same reporting that they look at.
Got it. So would you just look at everything? I know that we were just talking about earlier, right? That it's hard to even get the attribution, right? Like, because there's so many different ways that can happen, but how would you monitor the success of that then inside the CRM? Would you just the UTM strings as part of it or just looking at compared to the performance before?
If you run direct response, you're going to have all of the UTMs. It becomes very black and white. My position is that just like for sales led, like enterprise sales, like just performance marketing for high volume, low cost leads just doesn't turn into revenue at a rate that makes sense, right? And so that's sort of the position. And so if you acknowledge that, then you realize, okay, I can't do direct response on these channels unless it's high intent paid search Google to a demo. And so that's the one place where performance marketing works well. We see it work decently on YouTube sometimes, especially on retargeting flows. Like there are some places where it can work, but for the most part, if you're going for high volume of leads, the model's going to break. And so if you acknowledge that and you say, okay, we can't do that on social, which is where a lot of buying decisions get made today, then we're going to forgo UTMs. And then when we forgo UTMs with our customers, we get aligned on their funnel as if we worked at their company. And then we look at the funnel and we know that the previous 2 quarters, they created 10 SQOs a month through their website, through the demo form. And then we look forward the next quarter and it's 19 a month. Then we look forward the next quarter and it's 27 a month. And we're just looking at the positive trends. And then we have anonymous attribution inside of ad platforms that would give you the influence of those types of demos. And so that's how we kind of like correlate them. So we have anonymous attribution in the ad platforms. We know that the targeting is good. So we know that, CFOs or whatever CIOs at companies that are 200 and above, which is in their ICP, that's the targeting, no expansion. Those people are converting on demos. The demos over here are happening. The funnel is clean. They're converting to SQOs. The trends are going up. Our cost per SQO is going down. like all of the business metrics put together indicate that the stuff is working. Yes. Are we missing some stuff? Yes. Are they could be doing SQ or SEO that's driving a couple more demos. They could do that event that drove a couple. That's the way that it sort of works, but it's just about the trends become very clear when you string it out over a couple quarters.
Okay.
And so
Makes sense.
It's
So
way
just
harder.
being in this year, I'm getting a good feel for stuff in general.
It's
Yeah.
it's way harder than what agencies do right now. And so that's part of I think the reason why a lot of them don't. And the only reason that I do it this way is because I worked inside of these companies before I knew what was happening in Salesforce. I know that in order to get aligned on outcomes, like you can't just be running blind in ad platforms and collecting leads. You need to have the insight into the pipeline to know how to make good decisions. And so that's just what I require it in order to do the work with the customers.
Thanks, Natalie.
Great.
Good to see you.
All right. Got a couple of our regulars. Charlie, you're up. You can ask your question that you sent in, if you remember it.
Hi. Cool. Okay, yeah. So can you guys hear me all right? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You're in.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, no, so I just took on a new role, which was
Congrats.
Thank you very much. It's B2C, like law tech, which is really kind of stressed me out because I was just getting on top of like my LinkedIn game. I think I got a post, I got 10,000 views, pretty happy with that. And now suddenly I'm supposed to be doing Instagram stuff, and it's killing me because I'm getting whacked by like 16-year-old girls, and I just don't know the platform. But I guess I got to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
My question is related to editing. So I just don't think I'm going to have the bandwidth to continue to edit my own podcasts, but I'm like kind of loath to just offload it because I feel like when I sit down and edit it and create the sound bites and write the copy, that's what really drives the value for the short clips I post to LinkedIn. I'm using Descript, which I think someone from DGL recommended.
Mm-hmm.
I think a bit more context is like, I notice you and the other people in Refine Labs tend to post clips primarily of yourself, like saying something really smart, like you're the keynote speakers. I'm 24. I don't think I'm at that stage, right?
Everyone has something to say that's smart, whether it's their experience. Like I thought the exact same thing 3 years ago. I thought there are people that have 15 more years experience that know things that are way higher than me. Like nobody wants to listen to what I have to say. It's just not true. And so just change your mindset around that. Like it's about having confidence, it's about talking about things that you know, which then creates confidence because you actually know them. And so I think when people get caught is they start trying to pretend to be something that they're not and talk about things that they don't know, and then they get caught.
Okay, yeah, no, that is very good advice. I think for me, it feels more like the guests come on and I feel like the main vibe of it is sort of highlighting them as experts, right? So I feel like in my editing, I can't just then take a clip of me saying a soundbite and just post that. So I guess my question is,
there's a couple of our, make sure you don't forget your question. I just want to get this in there. We have podcasts where I almost say nothing. Like I did one last week with Andy Raskin, and the guy's just so smart that all I had to do was just ask him questions. I have no clips from that podcast that I can post. I didn't say anything except for ask questions of him and just pull knowledge out of his brain. Right. And that happened with Udi on the live event. There are some podcasts where I just get no clips out of it. And that's fine because I do enough of them where it doesn't impact me. And so there's two components of this. It's one about structuring the recording event where you have opportunities to say stuff if that's what you need. Right. And so you can structure it more like a conversation. You can do, instead of doing one a week, you can do 3 a week. So you have more opportunities to get things in. Oftentimes at the end of my podcast with people, I turn it over to them where they can drive the conversation for 2 or 3 questions, which then gives me the opportunity to answer a couple questions. I typically just I give it back to them, and the CMOs or whoever I'm talking to just get free consulting for a couple questions. Like they get the answers that are valuable to them, and I also get the content back for me. I did free consulting calls with one person. You could definitely do those for some of the things that you've learned on LinkedIn. So figure out who needs the information that you know, and then just do a one-on-one Zoom and record it. And then you get yourself answering things. It's about creating the environment where you can say the things that are in your brain.
Okay. Yeah, no, I see that. I think for me, I don't think I can take on more recordings because I did one other time. Mm-hmm. I think I guess I'm sitting here, right? I'm using Descript. I've got about 3 hours of podcast recordings I haven't posted, and it's been 2 weeks, and I've broken like the golden rule of being consistent. And I keep going on to edit it, and I'm like, I just don't have time for this. And I think what I've realized,
have someone else do the editing.
but this is my point, which is that I don't think it's the editing that's time consuming. It's working out which conceptual segments are the ones I want to post. And I guess
somebody else can do that. Somebody else does that
someone
for
else
me.
can do that. Okay.
Yeah, somebody else does that for me, and it took them a week to learn. They write the headlines at the top. Occasionally I need to change them, but they do all the headlines. They figure out where the clip start and stop. Like, somebody else can do those things. You got to let go of the things that you're not necessary for in the process in order to actually like sort of scale it. So I write the copy. I listen to the video. If I want to change the headline, I can change it before I post it. I answer all of the comments. I'm the one who's on the recording. Like, I handle the things that I need to be a part of that I think are the most important. I'm not going to have someone else write the copy for me. I'm definitely not going to have someone else comment for me. And so those are parts of the process that I would like to own, because it's the core of the communication and the interaction. But like the editing and choosing the clips and things like that, like there's plenty of services that can do that for a very low cost.
Okay, well, I have to look at these services. So I guess I imagine the guy doing your podcast editing is probably someone at my level. I guess what I'm saying is,
he's really good. He works for us.
Yeah, I'm sure they know what they're doing. I guess I feel like I can't go on Fiverr and outsource it to someone, because they just won't know what we're talking about.
I know tons of people that outsource it to India for almost no money, and the videos are good. Some of the best videos that you see on LinkedIn get outsourced for production in India.
Okay, I'll hit you up on LinkedIn after this. You can link me those. Thanks very much for answering my questions.
Happy to help.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Charlie. Congrats on your new job. All right, it's Bob time.
Sorry, I have a couple of nuts and bolts questions on the LinkedIn and YouTube platform.
We love the nuts and bolts questions. We're good.
Right. You know, obviously,
I'm trying to get tactical every now and then.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I'm trying to dig into these 2 other platforms and learn them a bit, and I'm having a couple of roadblock issues. But start with the YouTube pre-roll. I was actually really happy with how the YouTube pre-roll was going. The view, I've been tracking it and making sure the view percentage was staying high. It was pretty much at a flat level, so it was consistently delivering on impressions, like whatever it was. I spent like around $2,000 for like 60,000 impressions, which is totally our target market.
How do you know?
Oh, I'm deploying it to it's almost all I only have these 2 pages that they're deploying to that are, I asked customers, I said, where do you hang out on YouTube, like for optical training and eye care?
Really smart.
2 channels. And I didn't even know these channels existed. I myself never even knew about them.
Yeah.
So I'm deploying them to these 2 channels. And so I'm really happy kind of with that delivery. The message, let's say there were 7,000 views on that spend. And, for, a quarter of view, to me, that's a win on like a minute long message. It was, however I tracked it, was like, I'm paying 50 cents for a full view and 25 cents for a half view. And to me, that's like all day long on 6,000, 7,000 people. So I was really happy with it. And then the other day, it just totally stopped serving ads. And I've checked every troubleshooting thing I could find. And I thought maybe you would have an idea, but like, it's not budget because it's like a random amount. And I have that 2 times limitation you told me about, the audience
frequency cap.
And so my only thought was thinking, it was about a week ago. Is it possible it served it to everybody it could serve it to, and then it just shut off? But do you have any other thoughts on why I can't get
how long has it been flatlined at exactly 0?
Like 6 days.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
it doesn't feel it doesn't feel right. Let's cover this one offline, because honestly, I would have to see the data this is definitely solvable. I just am not going to be able to like guess. Well, if I looked at the data, I would be able to figure this out in 2 minutes. So let's just do it that way instead. But I'm happy to cover the LinkedIn one. You can shoot me a note on LinkedIn. I'll do it with you tomorrow.
No worries. I appreciate your time. That's, I was going to run a new ad anyway. Maybe I'll see if the new ad launches, and if I can't get the new one to go, I'll reach out to you. But on LinkedIn, so I did the same thing. I did the other thing you talked about, which was I created a new ad with the native lead gen within the ad. And it's only been relatively new. It's and that's a limited market that I'm going to. It's the key account targets. And
Mhm.
so, you know, I'm not expecting a whole lot of activity there, dollar spend wise. It's only spent like $200.
Mhm.
The views are, I mean, it's pricey for the number of views it's getting, but to get to those key accounts, like if one of those accounts eventually buys, it could be like 100 location deal. You know, it's something where one deal makes like the next 3 years. So I'm okay with that ad spend in the hopes that it's getting served to the right people. And I'm looking at the job titles, and
Yeah.
it's getting served to the right titles at the right companies. So even though it's pricey per view, let's say on $200, it's
So
got
it's,
like
yes,
30
price
views.
it out to quality of view against YouTube. LinkedIn wins.
No, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
My question to you was, how much would you spend before getting, no, you know, so I keep going into the asset to see the lead gen report, and I see my two test, my two test lead gens, and then the goose egg of lead capture so far.
Yeah.
So my question is, how much would you spend before you go, I'm not getting any leads from the native, you know, is it
More
is
than
it worth it?
200. So in the platform, it gives you data to understand where you're losing people. You can look at cost per click, right? And you can see the click-through rate. And so you can understand, are people just not clicking on it, or are they clicking on it? And then after that, it's going to give you number of form opens. It'll tell you how many people actually open the form, and then it'll just give you the form conversion rate, and then it'll tell you how many people filled out the form. So you can look at the whole thing and understand. Like, some of our customers asked us to have a bunch of custom questions and drop down menus in the form, and it's going to kill conversion rates, right? And so it's very clear when you get, like, when you're getting $6 clicks on a LinkedIn feed ad, and then you have a 1% conversion rate on a form that should be 20 to 30%, then you know the form's the problem.
Yeah, I only have the four fields in there, the 3 it autofills, the name and
then work email.
And then I have I did put in phone number. So you know, to try to eliminate the phone number one, you think maybe that's
Just look at the data. If like, see how many people have gone to the form, make so it's statistically relevant. If you have 3 people that have gone to the form and you have a 0% conversion rate, you don't have enough data to make a decision.
Right.
And so you just have to look, and it's either click-through rate or form conversion rate or some form of the two. And so just analyze those 2 things and then figure out which one needs to get adjusted.
Okay, appreciate it.
Happy to help.
Couple of good questions submitted in advance. They're not here, but guys, if you have a question, submit it and let me ask you a couple, because I think that they'll spark some good thoughts from you.
Okay.
So one is Tanuj Dewan. He's brand new to marketing and he's focusing on paid social. He's been listening to the podcast and he's been deploying, 6 different graphics, different messaging, going through that exercise that you've described, and it's working for him. He's now understanding and has data to show which messaging is working better, and he's now really focusing on that given the data. Now he's asking what's next. He's gone through that exercise. He really feels like he's learned a lot, is focusing his messaging. His product is about customer feedback and they target CX professionals in large enterprises. Looks like in Indonesia only, but he's curious what you would recommend as the next step that he takes.
Could you repeat the first part of the question? I'm not sure I fully understood.
Yeah. So he's brand new to marketing, and he's focusing just on paid social execution right now.
Okay.
LinkedIn only.
Yep.
So in listening to the old podcasts, he's taken the advice you've shared around running 6 different types of ads, different mix of messaging and ad creative and copy. He says he's begun to really understand which messaging is actually working better. He said that really worked.
Great.
And so now he's leaning into that messaging and the creative that is driving the most results. Given that he's so new, he's now just asking, like, what's next? What's the next thing that I should try?
Keep going. Like that is the answer. Like, just because you ran 6 ads and you figured out what the best one that of the 6 that worked, feed that back in and then go make 6 more, because we're here to communicate with customers, right? And so you need to just go back, figure out a better way to do it, try a different thing, be more creative, try a different design, try a video, try different targeting, just try. Like, this is I think I continue to see people think that they've like done a couple things and they've arrived. Like, we're just continuing to go. And so that's the answer is very simple. Just go back and try again. Perhaps take a couple minutes to think about why you think one of the messaging worked better than the other one. Maybe perhaps think about calling to customers or prospects and trying to get some more information about that specific thing. Think about brainstorming with your product team. Think about, having a different graphic designer try a couple different things so that you have more variation for the next test. Like, just keep working at it.
He's only doing LinkedIn, so he could try Facebook.
I think at this stage, especially like narrow CX at enterprise companies in Indonesia, I just think you should stay on LinkedIn.
Stay on LinkedIn.
Facebook is best for scale. Like when you were going after small TAM enterprise, 5,000 employee count and above, like just stay on LinkedIn, because you can't control a lot of those things on Facebook, especially without a tool. And even with a tool, it's sometimes challenging to control. And so Facebook is best for large total addressable markets with a lot of scale. I usually think about velocity sales. So that's my recommendation is you can get to the exact people that you want. You don't have a ton of people to get to. So the amount of it, the fact that it's a little bit more expensive is offset by the fact that your product is probably expensive and there's not that many people. And so it's net, it's not that expensive when you think about it on a monthly cost. And you can just keep working at that stuff and if the people are there and you're able to communicate and reach them there, then that's one touch point that you didn't have before.
Cool. He listens regularly, so I'm sure he'll catch that.
Cool.
In a couple of days. We have another marketer who is also international. She's in the Nordic market.
We got people from Indonesia and the Nordic market here. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
This is an interesting question. So I'll kind of paraphrase the first part of it. So basically, the company has been doing everything that you talk about and not doing. Running nurture streams, landing pages with gated content, the ebook play, et cetera, et cetera. And they have a lot of complicated automation built in Marketo. She said she came to the company and has been successful in getting them to shut down a lot of those programs. And in her experience, basically, she just wants to stop using Marketo. She doesn't see any benefits of using it. And is posing the question, is it possible to do demand gen without such a platform? Or if you are going to leverage the platform, what are really the benefits of, what should you use it for? What are the benefits and what should you not use it for?
I mean, like you can, would it be smart? No. Like there's back-end operational things. I don't think there's a lot from like an actual like communicating with customers standpoint that you need that stuff for anymore. But there's operational things that you need. Like you need to have a way to get a lead with UTMs into Salesforce so that somebody can call them so that you can know whether or not the revenue is there. Like Marketo does that. And so I don't spend any time in Marketo, and to be direct, very little time in HubSpot either. All that I need is somebody that can handle the operations and put the data in Salesforce where I need it. And that's why I think why those tools like essentially exist now. Like the little bit of attribution that they provide and that type of stuff is pretty much the only reason that I would use it. When it comes to just like I don't necessarily go in there and I'm like shut down email automation, forget the nurtures. Like I just sort of just get it out of my face, so to speak, right? When you have a large team and a big company, like I just sort of am like, that's not where I'm going to spend my time. If you would like to keep sending those emails, feel free. We're probably not going to have 1,000 new email addresses coming into this nurture flow anymore because I'm not wasting $50,000 a month to do that. And so that's sort of the way that I look at it in terms of email automation. But yeah, I mean, to be frank, there is operational things that you need those tools for. And the communication side, the email automation, I'm not even sure what they really do anymore. Like, I don't find to be that necessary anymore. you're going to need to send email when someone submits a demo request. You're going to need to send them a thank you email, or when someone submits a webinar, you're going to have automation to do some of those things. And so, like, I get that they have a place. My position on it is that marketers lean on it so much that they miss everything else. Brought to you by Marketo.
For that.
This podcast was sponsored by Marketo.
For that. Orly, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Hey, I realized what was the problem. It was going straight to my Bluetooth rather than Tim.
That's all right. Now you're in.
Now you're in.
All right. So 2 weeks in a row and I'm back. All right. So I have a question. Along I have some basic stuff, but CTAs on my homepage. So we thought that our homepage wasn't doing a good job at converting.
Okay.
At what point do we decide that we've done a bad job and with the CTAs and our ads are falling off the roof, or falling off a cliff? Or do we just say like it's one of those things? Like when at what point how many weeks do you need to give it a change before you can?
There's no clear-cut answer to this. The first question is, was it always bad, or has it been declining?
I mean, it's no, it has not always been bad.
It's declining.
It seems to have just kind of more fallen off, kind of the way I described it.
Conversion on clicking the button, on filling out the form.
Okay, let me be specific. People clicking on the button and saying, hey, I'd like a demo. Here's my problem.
Mm-hmm. How long has this been happening for?
So I made the change to our homepage about a week and a half ago. And it seemed like that since then, last week was okay. This week has still been kind of slow. And I don't want to, make the conclusion that, okay, it's the calls to actions,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, there's a lot of variables here, which make it
Right.
very hard to figure out what's going on. What'd you change the button from what to what?
so it was a kind of generic, our product for business, our product for personal. And then, so we do have a lot of defense customers and the DoDs. So we said our product for defense customers and our product for enterprise, or for business.
Mm-hmm.
And, the kind of strange thing is that our traffic has kind of been in the same range.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the conversions have just kind of fallen off.
So my recommendation would be to change them back and then run like a proper A/B test. And this is a learning for people because I've done these same mistakes and not too long ago, right? Like I get it when then you change something and then you're like, what's happening? And you don't actually know why it's happening, which is what the position that you're in. And so what I recommend now, because I've taken a landing page that was coming from paid search that was delivering 50 demos a month, right? And I took that and I made it way nicer, way better aesthetically, what I thought was way better messaging, and then just published it because it felt obvious that it was so good, and everything got
Clearly it was
crushed,
better.
and everything went way down. CPAs went up, leads went down, and so I just never do that. I never make major changes on things that are already working anymore, especially something like a homepage, without having like a proper A/B test where there's tools that'll basically just like split the traffic and give you 2 data points, and you have enough information to make sure that it's either better or at least the same. And so that if it's like really impacting your business, I would recommend to go all the way back and then do that. There are tools that are like, less than 50
What about
bucks a
Google
month.
Optimize for that? Do you,
Not something that I'm super experienced with.
okay. If anyone in the chat is, I was
I'm
just
sure
trying to
there's
find,
someone in the chat that can help you out. Yeah.
right.
part
Someone
of-
wants to provide up an opinion.
But that's good. It was a huge work that I never had really like felt that one that badly until like middle of 2019. And then I was like, oh, and so now I don't do that
Right.
anymore. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so people just in the text are saying for changing text only, Google Optimize is fine.
Cool.
And it's a pretty easy way to go. And yeah, it's just CTAs. So why invest in an expensive?
Yeah.
Something? Okay.
Perfect. Google Optimize it is. I learned something new today.
Yeah. So I guess we'll give this like another day or two until I can find time to change it back. All right. Thanks as always,
Awesome.
Chris.
Good to
It's
see
been
you.
a pleasure.
Happy to help.
Thanks, Orly. All right, our good friend Charlie has another question. It's a good one. We'll bring you back on. Hold on.
Hello again. So, yeah, well, my question is about my new role, which is in a B2C space. So it's a law tech. It's quite fun. Like a lot of, I'll give you a very short bit of context. A lot of like small claims in the UK don't get pursued. So students who have issues with their landlords just never pursue them. And the company's making automation tools to basically help facilitate these kind of cases. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's quite fun because a lot of my marketing funnel is basically getting students to win free money against their landlords, which is just great fun. Okay, so this is perhaps a bit more Dave's like angle, but I've heard you say it as well that we should learn from B2C. You know, that B2B marketing doesn't have to be boring. We can take the sort of creative and kind of more fun attitude.
It's how we roll. It's why, yeah. So
that's perhaps taking from B2C and applying it to B2B. But you know, me going from B2B to B2C, sorry, a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
What can I sort of draw from DGL, from your podcasts, and what should I be careful of taking with me, and what should I be aware of as someone who's had experience in both?
A lot of the principles that I talk about are working, but my recommendation is to take almost nothing with you, right? Like the idea with what you do, like performance marketing could work. You should test that, right? Like B2C, the offer is like, here's free money on Instagram. Like it's a little bit different than trying to sell a 100K ACV SaaS multi-stakeholder SaaS tool that somebody doesn't have a need for right now. And it's going to take 3 months to implement with the same tactic. It's just different. And so you should try those types of things. I think that you could still potentially have success on LinkedIn organic. I see a lot of people. I see a girl that owns a vegan cookie dough company from Canada that does really well on LinkedIn. I imagine that she's selling a lot of cookie dough because I know that I've bought matcha tea from somebody because I follow the CEO of that company on LinkedIn, right? And so a lot of other purchasing decisions outside of just like software or B2B stuff is happening on LinkedIn. It's a content platform now. And so now I keep thinking about why there's not people that are doing like the best exercise routine. All these people are on Instagram where there's complete saturation for a lot of different content types. And if they literally just took their content and moved to LinkedIn and post the same stuff on LinkedIn, they would be unique, differentiated with way more reach. But instead, because Instagram's the cool place to be for fitness or for food or for all those different things, they would never think about posting that content on LinkedIn. Somebody's got to do this. Somebody listening to this has like a side hustle where they're like make videos about cooking or something. You need to go and just put that, and you're doing it on Instagram and you're getting 17 likes because the content is the platform is saturated. And if you literally just move that to LinkedIn and sort of apply just a different type of like contextual element to it, like I think it would really work. You could do I'm making this up on the fly. You could take that exact same thing from cooking and talk about how cooking is a great way to recharge after a long day because you have to focus on doing a certain task and you don't have to think about work. And you could talk about how it makes you relax or it makes you focus or it makes you feel creative or whatever. Like there's so many ways to spin it. And so that's an interesting idea, but let's get back to your original question. I honestly don't think that there's a lot that you should take from here over there because there's just different rules over there. And the rules over there are cooler. They just have a lot more flexibility. I think B2B marketing, just to be 100% clear, I think B2B marketing is way easier than B2C. Way easier. Because you know the people that you're going after and it's very well defined. And so the targeting is easier over there. Well, you have students, right? So it's just like it's a different type of game. So that's the difference that I see in B2B is that, or to B2C is that the targeting perhaps can be more challenging. For other companies, if you have proper segmentation, different things like that, it can be just as easy.
Okay, well, that's been really, really useful. If I'm allowed to one follow-up.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest transition for me has been like, the last couple of months, I was in a B2B SaaS role before. So I've been sitting on LinkedIn, engaging with your content, lots of other content, and it's been great. And now I'm just sitting there on Instagram all day and it's killing me. So I'm just seeing TikToks from like students. And like, I guess my question is, you mentioned, you can take this kind of organic approach and try and explore it on LinkedIn, but am I correct in this idea I've done where I'm thinking, right, I'm now an Instagram guy. I need to go from spending 3 hours, 4 hours a day on LinkedIn to spending 3 or 4 hours a day on Insta and just completely refocus like that.
The difference between LinkedIn and Instagram is the maturity of the platform and the perceived upside of starting right now. There is very little upside to starting an Instagram channel right now, unless you're going to just do it so that you can run ads. But the content, it is saturated. The reach is down. There's very few people that don't follow you will ever see your content. How you get followers is going to be very hard without doing like the black hat stuff, like using automation, follow and follow type of stuff. And so that's why I like, if the only reason to be on Instagram for that reason is to purely just to engage with other people. And that is a very long hand-to-hand combat game. And there's just better ways to spend your time, in my view, than do that. So that's the difference. Is if I was talking to you and you're like, I'm spending all my time on Instagram, I would say, forget that. Go spend all your time on TikTok, because there's just more opportunity there.
Cool. Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks. Yeah.
Cool.
Cheers.
Happy to help. Cheers.
Thanks, Charlie. I like that question. Closing thoughts, Chris?
Got this. It's called Carrot Citrus Radiance, and it tastes delicious. It's been getting me through this whole episode. So thanks everyone for showing up. This is next week is going to be super fun. We have 2 great events. I'm really looking forward to it. I love seeing there's several people from my team here, which is great. Love seeing that. Hopefully there's some knowledge being dropped in the comments and helping people out. I love where people ask questions that I don't know the answer to, and there's 30 people in the chat here to go and help someone out. That's awesome. So just love continuing to see everyone here on Tuesday nights, and we'll hope to see you next week for both of the events. The one with Gaetano is going to be open-ended and kind of like a lot of questions, and just kind of flex in whichever direction people want to go. And so feel free to come like prepared, like I said, prepared with a tactical question. I'm seeing this, I want to do this data, especially if you have organic SEO, affiliate type of things that fit Gaetano's strength that don't get asked here a lot. So feel free to bring those things. And then the Dave one is going to be more broad, high level on how B2B marketing is changing, how buyers are changing, how companies need to adjust, things like that. And then I'm sure that just through that conversation, we're going to get into some interesting, deep tactical stuff. So that's the roadmap. See you all next week. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
See you next Tuesday, everybody. Have a good week.
Later.